I discovered a hidden rental market where tenants reliably pay, vacancies are rare, and cash flow is 10 times higher than traditional rentals. And that led me to a simple realization that you don't need 20 properties in order to reach financial freedom. You actually only need 5. Using the strategy that I'll go over, I was able to replace my pharmacist salary and retire in 5 years with just 5 properties. And today I'm going to show you the exact blueprint so that you can do the same. So let's go ahead and dive right in. For most people, having $10,000 a month in take-home pay is enough to cover all of their basic expenses. Now, everyone might be a little bit different, but let's keep things simple and say that $10,000 a month is our goal. Now, let's say we want to hit our $10,000 a month goal with just 5 houses. That means that each house needs to be making about $2,000 per month in cash flow on average. 2,000 times 5 is $10,000 a month. Pretty simple math, right? And you can see it up here. The key, though, is actually finding houses that make $2,000 a month in cash flow on a consistent basis, which is actually not too difficult if you know the right strategy. Now, the 5 rental rule to financial freedom basically states that you only need 5 rentals to reach retirement as long as each rental meets the 1.5% rule. This rule basically states that the monthly rent needs to be 1.5% of the purchase price of the house. For example, if we have a $100,000 house, we want the monthly rent to be $1,500 a month, which is 1.5% of $100,000. Now, one quick note here, you want the house to be at least $250,000 or more, because if it is, and it meets the 1.5% rule, then that house is most likely to cash flow at least $2,000 a month or more, which was the goal that we discussed earlier. So how do you calculate the typical monthly rent on a house? Well, you can go to Rentometer.com, plug in the house address, and it will tell you how much you can get in monthly rent on average. Then you just simply divide the monthly rent by the purchase price of the house, and that number should be 1.5% or more. Now, usually this number isn't as high as 1.5% on a traditional rental. However, there is one real estate strategy that guarantees that you'll always meet the 1.5% rule if you find the right deal. And that is rent by the room student housing. And because you're renting by the room, your total rental income is usually doubled. And that's because instead of selling the whole box, you're essentially selling the space inside of the box, and thus making much more cash flow. Think of it this way. Let's say I have a whole pizza. I can sell the whole pizza for $20, or I can divide it into 8 slices and sell each slice for $5 per slice, so that I get $40 instead. Even though it's the exact same pizza, I'm getting double the price. And that's exactly what we do in student housing as well. It's the same house, the same interest rate, but 10 times the profit. Instead of making just $200 a month in cash flow, we're making more like $2,000 a month in cash flow. In other words, why would I rent out the whole box to a family for $1,500 a month when I can rent out 6 spaces in that same box for $700 per bedroom to have $4,200 a month? That's 6 bedrooms times $700 per bedroom. Now, a quick rule here, just to be thorough. Remember that I said that the house needs to be $250,000 or more so that you can meet the 1.5% rule. Well, that's because if the house is less than $250,000, you actually want to meet more of the 2% rule, as you can see on here. So let's say you buy a house that's $150,000. Ideally, in that scenario, you have to have 2% of the purchase price, which is $3,000 a month in rental income or more, and that will allow you to still cash flow the $1,500 to $2,000 per month that we're aiming for. Now, renting by the room may seem like a lot of work, but it has several advantages to it, and the first one is consistency. Let's say one tenant stops paying you, but you have 6 bedrooms with 6 tenants in it. That means you still have 5 other paying tenants, so you still make 5/6 of your total rent. Versus if you rent out your whole home to a single tenant and that tenant stops paying you, that means you got 0 income on your house. It's basically feast or famine, and you have to deal with evicting that non-paying tenant, which can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and a lot of time, of course. Contrast that with student housing. Let me tell you a really interesting story about what I call my ghost tenant, who never actually moved in, which shows you how consistent the income from student housing can really be. I once had a tenant who signed a lease with me, but because COVID just hit the US, this tenant moved back home to stay with their family and take care of them. I was sweating, waiting nervously for the day that this tenant would tell me that he would no longer be paying rent. However, month after month passed and the rent just kept coming in. I was like, what the heck is going on? This tenant never moved in. Why would you pay for something that you never even use? Unless we're talking about your gym membership, haha. It turns out that this student had a full ride scholarship that also covers room and board, and if he didn't use it, he would lose the scholarship. So the tenant paid rent for the entire 1 year of the lease, even though he never moved in. Can you imagine that? That's pretty crazy, but it happened to me. And this is because students have so many ways to pay the rent. For example, they have student loans that they can use, financial aid, scholarships, research stipends, and parents who are covering the rent for their children. Plus, you can have the parent co-sign on the lease so that they will end up paying the rent if their child doesn't. And if anything happened at the house, let's say you have a tenant who breaks the furniture, then mom and dad are on the hook because they co-signed on the lease. Over time, this leads to always getting paid, less hassle in dealing with unpaid rent, and much higher margins and cash flow for you. Okay, now that we talked about the recommended strategy for consistently meeting the 1.5% rule, which is student housing of course, let's go ahead and talk about how I use this strategy to replace my full-time pharmacist salary and reach financial freedom in 5 years. I started in 2016 when I had saved up $60,000 to buy my first house in Stockton, California. It cash flowed decently, but I lost a lot of money due to unexpected expenses and repairs. Despite this, I was able to squeeze out just enough for a 10% down payment on my second house the following year. I bought it using a second home loan with a $30,000 down payment. Now for a second home loan or a vacation home loan, just realize that you have to live at the house for a certain amount of the year. Then in year 3, something really cool happened. My first house appreciated $60,000, and I was able to take that out as cash using something called a home equity line of credit, also known as a HELOC. Then I used that $60,000 to put as a down payment on my third property in 2018. Lenders actually allow you to use HELOC cash rather than money out of your own pocket to buy properties, which allows professional real estate investors to scale so much faster. Now, I did the same thing in 2019 where the second property I had appreciated $60,000. I took that out as cash using the home equity line of credit to buy my fourth house. Finally, each house cash flowed $1,500 to $2,000 per month, which means that the 4 houses that I bought cash flowed $6,000 per month total, as you can see down here, which is equal to $72,000 a year, and I used that $72,000 as a down payment on the 5th property. And that's how you can reach your 5 rental goal in just 5 years to replace your salary and have financial freedom. Let me end this video by breaking down the numbers on an actual deal that I got recently, so that you can see the possibilities with the strategy. Now, quick caveat, not all of your deals will make as much cash flow as this one did. I bought this $367,000 duplex in Ohio, and it had 10 bedrooms. And I figured that I could rent it out to college students with 5 bedrooms in each unit, and it had 2 units. What actually happened is I ended up renting it out to 12 people because a couple people wanted to double up in a bedroom. Because of the additional rent I was making from the shared bedroom, this house ended up making $7,325 per month in rental income, with a mortgage payment of $2,825 per month. Now, if you divide the rental income of $7,325 a month by the purchase price of $367,000, you actually get about 2%. So this house actually meets the 2% rule. And guess what? The cash flow minus all of the expenses minus the mortgage is $4,200 a month net. That's pretty amazing, right? That's how powerful the student housing rent by the room method can be. Look, 5 years is going to pass anyways. You can spend that time climbing the corporate ladder, worrying about AI taking your job, or maybe hoping for a raise. Or you can buy one rent by the room property per year like I did, and in 5 years, you won't just have extra income. You will have the ability to walk away from your 9 to 5. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with others who are interested in getting started in real estate investing. And if this 5 rental rule plus the ghost tenant story really opened up your eyes and you're probably thinking, okay, but is it actually possible to build up my rental portfolio on the side while working my 9 to 5 job? Then go ahead and click on the video right up here. In that video, I'll go through the exact steps and systems that I use to go from employee to replacing my full-time salary with just 5 rentals. If you don't just want the math and you want the actual roadmap, including practical tips and strategies for building your own portfolio, don't forget to go ahead and click on that link and I'll meet you in there.